What's going on, everybody? I'm OUTLIT, and today I'm reviewing your beats, not your feet. We got 15 of you here who submitted beats. Thank you so much. You guys are like my little guinea pigs. First, we got Trouble on the Field by Guafa Big One on Instagram. Alright, man, kick it to me straight. What's with the bit crusher on your master? Now, believe it or not, this beat has some redeeming qualities. So I love what you did with the melody. I think that there's a lot of creative stuff going on here. Artists like Uno the Activist or even Thousand Band Fani would love a loop like this if the beat was a little bit more put together. A good way to start with getting your beat to sound more cohesive is to refrain from putting anything on the master like a bit crusher. Because what you're doing is you're essentially affecting every single sound in your beat when you throw it on the master. So you might be better off just putting it on the melody, maybe limiting it to some sections. Learning the fundamentals of mixing, proper EQ, how to efficiently use reverb, that sort of thing will take you to the next level. There's also a little bit too much going on for an artist to hop on, in my opinion, but the way it is now, I think it would perfectly fit in a lot of vaporwave mixtapes if you're trying to shoot for being an artist, especially in the vaporwave scene where mixing doesn't necessarily matter as much. Next on the list, we have Rail Grinder by Floaty Beats. Okay. Goes hard, bro. This definitely reminds me of the newer sound that Yeat is going for. Overall, I think the beat was great. I love the composition and arrangement and all of your sound selection. I think what would take this to the next level would be the mixing. So if I were to open up an EQ on this track, this is just on a master EQ, so it's very rudimentary, but I would definitely take down everything from 200-ish all the way until 2K, just like a big dip here, and then an extra little one around 5 to 10K like this. And it'll ultimately bring the lows back out. So it's very, very punchy, very aggressive. So if that was what you're going for, that's great. But I think that the low end is really suffering because of that. I can tell that you're distorting everything quite a lot into your master bus. So if you're to take everything back here, you still get that distorted sound, but it's a lot more palatable for the listener. Next, we have Popm by Prodfall. So from what I'm hearing, you have a really good understanding of composition and arrangement. Your sounds sound very cohesive and there's a lot of movement throughout the track while still retaining that minimalist sound. A lot of artists would really like this beat. But in order for it to get to its fullest potential, worry less about getting everything so loud in the mix and allowing things to breathe a little bit more. I hear in the low end that sub bass and that kick are kind of fighting for space in the mix. And believe me, even if you turn that sub down a few decibels and maybe pull everything down from the master chain a little bit, I don't know if you're pumping into a limiter or a soft clipper or something, everything would definitely slap just as hard. It would just sound less like it's suffocating, and everything would get a little bit more room to shine. There's a lot of information around the lower end of the high end, which is a little bit harsh, specifically around 2K in the loop and then 5K in the hi-hats. This is the harsh frequency range right here. A lot of times in my beats, I tend to cut here or use a dynamic EQ to get those resonances tamed in this area, because when an artist hears your beat, the last thing you want is for their ears to hurt and for them to skip it. Even if it's fire, if your mix is bad in a sense where it's harsh, then a lot of artists will skip that. Just tame those higher mids and you'll be good. Next we got Retro by @DUFGJYW on Instagram, also known as Prod by Schkop. Man, let me turn down my headphones. Bro, are you trying to make me deaf or something? Like, what's the deal here? Why is everything so loud, for real? All right, bro. You know, the beat itself isn't bad, but the mix is really bad. While listening to this for only 10 seconds, what I could tell you is that, for one, you need to replace that limiter on your master with a soft clipper. And two, man, why is everything so loud? Like, you could turn everything down a good 12 decibels or more. Everything would still slap just as hard, I promise you. Also, you're going to have to check out the 2 kilohertz to 9 kilohertz region. There's just a lot of information there. If you listen on any sort of defined pair of headphones, even a pair of AirPod Pros, you're going to notice that that region is a little bit too harsh. Just figuring out how to gain stage everything properly and reduce harshness with an EQ could really, really, really help you out, bro. But this has potential. You're good. Next, we got Concern by Fiction Fiend 2 on Instagram. So this A section you got for this first 16 bars or so, I really like that. You could throw a soft clipper on the master and pump everything a little bit harder into it. Maybe even turning up the 808 a little bit would do you well, but this B section, not so much. Ruins the beat in my opinion. Yeah, pump that 808 up. Pump that snare up as well. I would say pretty fire beat, decent work. Next we got Leopard by Prod Jamario. Hopefully I said that right. Man, this one a vibe. Man, this beat, fire in almost every aspect. I love the mix. The loop is fire. You killed it on all fronts here. Now, the only thing I'm going to suggest here is at the end of the breakdown, you hear that 808 tail go out like that. That's low-key a little bit sloppy. Let me teach you how to fix that. So I got an 808 here. Not cut at all. You want to go into the sampler here. So in the channel rack, open your 808, go to this wrench icon, and then just click Cut Self. Then you want to go to the envelope icon, turn this on, turn the attack low, the hold all the way up, the decay all the way down, and the release all the way down, as well as the sustain, turn that all the way up. You want this box thing. In combination with cutting itself, not only will the 808 turn off when you cut the note, it'll also just go through the length of the sample if the note is too long. See how it ends there? Last thing I'm gonna say about this beat is that it's kind of weird that it starts on the full swing of the beat, but it ends with just the loop. You could use this little loop part as a bridge and then throw, you know, another extra 16 bars of the beat after. I'm a huge fan of this breakdown right here, so maybe having a section of just the normal beat and then the breakdown and having it fade out from the breakdown could work really well. Next we got Akaza by Prod Ju.
Not bad, are you?
I really like what you did here. I think this beat is unique in a lot of ways. I really like what you did with the snares in this, and the loop is amazing. The only thing I would say is that it's a little bit too deep fried for my taste, my listening purposes, but a lot of artists really like their beats like that. So A1 job on this one. If there's one thing I'd say could improve this beat quite a bit, would be dampening that 2 to 5K range, because you have a lot of snares, a lot of virtual-esque synths, which occupy this range quite a bit. And an artist's voice is going to need a lot of clarity around that end while not having too much harsh stuff going on around it. Really just around this sort of region.
Not bad, are you?
See, it really doesn't affect the actual sound of the beat too much, but it makes a little bit more room for the artist. Next on the list, we got Terror by Prod Rafiq. Overall, pretty good beat. I really love the loop. I love what you did with the 808s. I think that the snares, percussion, and the hi-hats are just a little bit too low in the mix. Those are gonna really need to snap when the artist hops on so that you could still hear it over their voice. I also think that this B section here is kind of awkward how it only happens once, and it's a little bit empty compared to everything else. Otherwise, pretty good beat, I would say. I think Rich Amiri would be pretty far on that. Next, we got Problems by Z9.
Hell no. That shit costs green.
Overall, this beat is almost there. I think that everything is being pushed a little bit too hard into that master chain. The loop sounds like it's fighting for air, which is a result of the 808 being so much louder than everything else that when it's taken out, there's a sort of ducking effect. If your loop is ever louder when the 808 is not coming in, it's most likely because everything's being pushed too hard into something like a limiter, where there's no saturation happening. It's just straight up limiting the sound, like nothing can pass it. When that happens, you're limiting the amount of space, literally, to allow your elements to breathe. Another thing I noticed is that all the high end on, say, that chant, the hi-hat, the snare, it sounds like you boosted it all from, say, like the master channel equalizer. And the reason why I never do stuff here in this equalizer is because, see where you're boosting a shelf at 8K. And a lot of times, that's where all the harsh frequencies hang out with anything from your loop to your snare to your hi-hat, etc. So if you want anything to sound more crispy, what I suggest doing is actually doing subtractive EQ down here with an equalizer instead. You're not adding that high end, in turn adding these harsh frequencies around 8K. you're more so getting all the good stuff in there without all the bad stuff. And if you do it independently with all of your sounds with EQs, then you can actually control what frequencies you're boosting and which ones you're not. Next, we got Moon by Prod Amori and Wizard. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with the composition, arrangement, sound selection, anything in this beat. There's just a whole lot going on. So I don't know if an artist would listen to this and say, hey, this sounds like a great beat for me to hop on so my voice can shine. If you're shooting for placements, you always got to put it in the artist perspective. Now, the actual problems with this beat lie in the low end. So I hear you're doing a lot of stereo stuff with your 808s. I mean, I used to do a lot of the same stuff with my self-released music, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but you have to manually go in and make sure that the sub frequencies are set to mono so that they don't cancel out on car systems, club systems, etc., because most of those systems process their bass in mono. If you ever get in the car and it's not slapping as hard as in your studio monitors or your headphones, you always got to check that mono signal. Now, the only other problem with this beat, everything is being pushed way too hard into that master chain. You want your beats to be loud, you want them to smack, I get it, but the best way that you can do that is to gain stage all of your elements properly and then push them lightly into something like a soft clipper to get the desired effect that you're looking for. Next, we got audio_6343 by Undressed Shoddy. Oh boy. So there's quite a lot going on in this beat. My first suggestion to you is to really study the type of music that you want to make, whether it's placement ready hip hop beats, or you want to be making something more experimental, you want to be making jazz, drum and bass, whatever it is. It's important to listen to the genre and study it. I think you need to work a lot on making everything a little bit more cohesive because I wasn't sure what you were trying to do here in a sense. Don't give up. Keep on going. You're way better than I was when I started. I'm gonna put it that way. Next, we got Menace V3 by Lance Greco.
Lance, this you?
This ain't bad at all, man. In fact, it's almost there. You need to work on your arrangement a little bit. I think that you should take that lead out in some portions and let that atmosphere you have in the back really shine because that went pretty hard. Other than that, it's basically just your mixing, but it really comes down to your sound selection and learning how to make the sounds sit well with each other via mixing. It's just a lot of trial and error, so just keep at it consistently and you're going to get way better over the next year or two. Next, we got Dressed to Kill by Prod Composure, also known as @SachinRothan7 on Instagram.
In the beginning there was Jack, and Jack had a groove, and from this groove came the grooves of all grooves.
Hold on, I gotta wind that back.
There was Jack, and Jack had a groove, and from this groove came the grooves of all grooves. And while one day viciously throwing down on his box, Jack boldly declared, "Let there be high."
Okay. Yo, honestly, this is the most creative beat I've heard in a very long time. I really love what you did with the sound selection and the composition, especially this first half here. It reminded me a lot of Clam's Casino and Shlomo. You should definitely study mixing a little bit more because it sounds a little bit dull. And you could definitely do more work around the low end to make it hit, make the sub-region come out really, really nicely. Because what I see here is a really, really, really awesome idea, but with low-key poor execution. I see what you were trying to do though, especially with this climactic portion over here. Just knowing how to make the sounds work a little bit better with each other through different mixing tactics will do you a lot better. But don't quit, dude. This is a really, really creative piece. And I want to see where you take your music. Next, we got Different, I Guess, by Tuco Big One on Instagram.
Man, Tuco chill, I say.
Yo, this beat is pretty good. You have these two different sections here. The first section with the plug 808, and then you got this more sort of drawn out virtual kind of 808. I think that it would do you very well to switch back and forth a little bit more frequently. So work on your arrangement and then also your mixing a little bit. The 808 in the beginning slaps pretty hard, but this 808 over here doesn't slap nearly hard enough, especially doesn't match the beginning section. If you were to switch back and forth between bars of 8 and then in another section, switch in the same bar, the 808, the same 808, and just kind of played around with it, man, you could take this beat to the next level for sure. The mixing isn't inherently bad at all, so I'd say you did pretty good on this beat. And lastly, Light by Prod Milo. Bro, you just took me to slime paradise for real. I feel like I'm in slime land. That's wet. This beat is so wet it makes me uncomfortable. Nah, this beat's mad unique. I don't even know what to say to this, dude. I feel like the CTM 808 went in my personal space a little too much, low-key. That joint was whispering to me in my ear like I was mad uncomfortable, to be honest. But this is also a really, really, really creative beat. Squelchy, wet. I'm curious more than anything. It could low-key use a kick in a couple of the sections just to bring you back to earth because it's low-key hypnotizing in a way. Like, I really don't have anything bad to say about this one. So overall, pretty good work, dude. Low-key getting dark in here, man. Thanks again for tuning in. That was Beat Reviews episode 1. If you'd like to submit one for the next episode, there's a Google form links down in the description. Thanks again for your continued support.